Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast. I'm Jason Abrams, and this is the place where we lift the curtain on the world of real estate like never before. Every week, I sit down with visionaries, pirates, and mavericks. We're here to document, demonstrate, and most importantly, demystify their game-changing models and systems. What secrets propel them to the top? And how are they living their dreams? This is about passion, it's about strategy, but above all, it's about real, tangible success. So buckle up and let's dive in. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast. It is not every day that you get to interview somebody who was interviewed in the original Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Friends, we're going to talk to an agent that literally had a chapter that was molded after the way he did business. At least that's what Dave Jenks told him. I am speaking about none other than Andy Allen. You see, Andy is an industry veteran. He's been doing this for over 25 years, and early on he stumbled onto an incredible system, farming, but he does it in a very unique way. This year he spent $34,000 and reaped over $1.1 million in GCI because of it, and he is going to tell you exactly how to do it. Sit back and buckle up. This is Andy Allen. Andy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you've earned it, my friend. 34 years in the real estate industry and the sort of success you have, that gets on this show all day long.
Well, it should be. Actually, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? The book, the original book that came out, I didn't remember this until I talked to Dave Jenks many years later, because Dave had been my personal coach for part of the time. And I called him back to work on something with me, and he goes, well, you remember in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the entire buyer agent section is your team. And I went, no. And he goes, Andy, how can you not remember that? I was camped in your office for 2 weeks. And I go, I guess you weren't that memorable, Dave. I didn't know you did that.
That's so good. For some of our new listeners, Dave Jenks was one of the co-authors with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. They wrote the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which of course is the namesake for this show. Yeah. Andy was one of the folks that helped get the research done, and it was based on his success. Andy, I want to talk about all the success that you've had, and I'm really excited about your new book coming out. Friends, I've gotten a sneak peek, and it's fantastic. But before we do, I want to ask you the question I ask everyone else. How did you end up in the greatest industry in the world?
So mine is a different story. And what I would say is, I cannot agree more that this is the greatest industry in the world. The life that I have gotten to live as a result of this industry, when you hear my story, you'll understand how shocking really this is. So when I was a kid, my goal was going through college, I competed in bodybuilding. And I have never been someone who's motivated by money. I'm motivated by happiness. I want to be happy. So I get out of school, and what made me happy was training for 2 hours a day, eating 6 meals, laying in the sun for an hour. And then I would work teaching defensive driving. And this is late 80s. And I was getting $20 an hour, which back then was what my buddy who just graduated from pharmacy school made. So I'm thinking, that was good money. So I would work 4 hours a night, Monday through Thursday from 6 to 10. And I'd teach a class all day Saturday. And that gave me enough money to live this really cool life. Okay. You can imagine how thrilled my parents were with me. So they consistently came at me like, oh my God, our son, all he cares about is the gym. This is horrible. All the school, come on. And so they're the ones who said, look, why don't you get a real estate license? Because you're going to buy or sell houses throughout your life, hopefully. So I thought, you know what? It keeps them off me for a while. So I'm good with that. And back then it took about 3 weeks to get a license. And of course they didn't know that. So I stretched that into like 6 months talking to them. Yeah, I'm doing the classes. So back then at 6 feet tall, I weighed 260. I had a 33-inch waist and I wore a 56 coat. And you couldn't go in an office unless you had a coat and tie at Keller Williams. Not even to check your mail. You couldn't pop in like someone might see you. So I had to have clothes made. So I go to the office and I look around and I'm thinking, you know what? These people seem to be like doing okay. And I'd never considered the industry, but I started looking going, I got a really good gig and I love my life, right? But man, I think these people might have something figured out. If I sell like a house a month, I don't have to work nearly as many hours and I could replace the income. I think I could have an even better life. So I get in real estate, but I'm incredibly competitive. That's just who I am. So I get in real estate and I start looking around and then I go, wait a minute, that guy's not going to do more than me. That lady's not going to do, I can't have this. And so all of a sudden, right from the beginning, my trajectory was like that.
Wow.
But I had no intention. Everybody listening probably got in real estate because when I see an opportunity, I really want. No, I got in real estate because my parents hated me and wanted me to do something with my life. And that's how I stumbled into this industry.
Do you have success right off the bat?
I did. In fact, I laugh because my mom was so disappointed in this. I set a goal for the first year, okay? And I hit my goal at the end of September. And so I talked to my folks and I just didn't work the rest of the year because I thought, no, I already hit my goal. I'm not about making money. That's not my deal, right? And I had enough money. I hit my goal. And so I'm talking to my folks, how's work? And I go, I already hit my goal, so I've got off for the rest of the year. And they're like, oh my God, so disappointed in me.
Andy, you might not be about making money, but I've seen the house, and the last time we did a video call, you were in a Bentley. So somehow you have figured out how to make money. Stay with me, though, because I want to stay in this first year in real estate. You're talking 34 years ago.
Yeah.
What was your biggest surprise about the industry when you got in?
So remember, I had come from bodybuilding, right? And bodybuilding requires amazing discipline. So I had gone years without eating sugar and never missing workouts and no drinking. And my world revolved around making gains, right? Looking better and looking better on stage. So for me, the discipline that I had when I got into real estate, the epiphany was these people don't have very much discipline. You know, if we're honest, there's always been a revolving door in real estate. And frankly, the bar to entry is very low. And so some people would look at that as a negative. I looked at that and went, if these people are making a living, then I can conquer the world in this just because of the discipline.
Do you think anything is different now 34 years later? If I'm out there and I just got my real estate license, do you still think that discipline plus action over time equals the result I want?
I think even more so than back then.
Why?
Because I truly believe that today, and I don't want this to come across wrong, but I just think it's the reality. I don't think young people are nearly as motivated as I was when I was young and people coming out of school were. I think there is more of a, hey, I just need to kind of float by and make it. You know, when I was younger, it was much more competitive.
Okay, so let's get into this thing. And by the way, friends, we are about to unpack a couple of models. But before we do, I want to just remind you, you don't have to take notes. I'm taking the notes. We send them out every Thursday. If you don't get them, you can go to MREAnotes.com, sign up, and then you'll get the notes from this show on Thursday. So, Andy, something happens and you kind of have an epiphany and you figure out the power of farming and you do it in a really unique way. What was the aha that you had and why did you have it?
So probably my second year in real estate, there was an agent in the office who did a lot of farming, and he was a younger agent, maybe 5 years older than me, but still a younger agent. So I'm watching him and I'm thinking, you know, again, being competitive, I look and go, okay, if this guy has dominated one area, then I should be able to do that. So I immediately went after where I lived.
Okay, so this is the first step in the model. It sounds like pick your area. You picked where you live. Why was that?
Because it was, truthfully, the first neighborhood where I lived was comparable to where he was in terms of price point and size. And so I could follow the model relatively closely, what he had set, and do the same.
If you were going to pick an area today, if you were an agent and you were going in cold today to pick your area, would you automatically default to where you live? How would you think about choosing?
Absolutely not. And in fact, when we moved eventually because of farming, I chose where we moved based on who was and wasn't dominant and built a home there because I knew I could be dominant. But what I would tell you is, so I have farmed as many as 60,000 homes at a time. Back when my team was ranked number 15 in the nation by the Wall Street Journal and number 1 throughout KW, I was farming 60,000 homes, the same 60,000 homes every month. I choose not based on any other factor than is someone dominant in the neighborhood, number one. And number two, what is the churn factor? In other words, I want to know that houses sell. I can't be in a neighborhood farming where it's older people who stay there until they die because there's not going to be the return. So I need there to be a good return. And what's interesting is over the years, Jason, I've watched a lot of agents talk about, hey, as long as someone doesn't have 20% market share or 10% market share, and I've spent a lot of money on farming over the years, and I can tell you my number is 6%. If someone has more than 6% of the market share, that tells me they're already marketing and they already have a head start. When I was younger, there were neighborhoods I tried to go into because I just felt like, you know what? I'm better than they are and people are going to love me and hate them and this is going to go great. And it never went great. I never made any headway in those neighborhoods.
So I love this, by the way, and I love how you're tying numbers to these ideas. So number one is someone dominant, and for you, it's do they have 6% or more of the market share? If not, there's greener pastures. Number two, that there's churn. What do you look for in a churn number?
It's going to depend on where you live, but for me, it is looking at different opportunities, and you go, okay, these are the 5 neighborhoods I could go into right now. And then I look and go, which one of those has the most sales in the last year, 2 years, 3 years? Because that's going to tell me where I'm going to make the most money. All of these decisions, this is our business. All these decisions are based on making money, profitability. So you should be looking at this from a business standpoint. There should be no emotion about, oh, but I've always liked this neighborhood. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you like a neighborhood. This is a business decision.
Okay, step one, pick your area. What's next?
Then with regard to the farming, there are a lot of different pieces, and it'll depend on price point and other things. So if you've chosen the right area, then when you go in, you know there is no competition. So you're going into the neighborhood, and I believe consistency is the most important thing, right? And you have to be memorable. So I found there is no value in sending out just listed cards. I don't think they're impressive, and it doesn't make the phone ring to say, look, I've listed a house. What makes the phone ring is solds. And so you need to know your neighborhood better than anyone else so that when you price a house, you price it at a point where it's going to sell and it's going to bring them a high return. First of all, those of us who have been in the real estate industry long enough know the houses that sell very quickly will sell for more than the houses that drag on the market forever and ever. Everybody thinks there are issues. So your goal is understand your farm incredibly well, better than anyone else. And here's what's interesting, back to the original topic of what it takes to succeed and how I knew. Most agents don't work a 40-hour work week. In their mind, they think they work 60 hours, but the reality is they do a lot of hanging out and not really working. I'll put it this way. The work that many agents do, if they performed at that level and had an employer, they wouldn't last a week. That's the truth. Right? I mean, it's an ugly reality for some, but for most of you who are listening, here's what I'd say. It's really not an ugly reality because that's your competition. If that's your competition, can you imagine how amazing life is where most of the people you're competing with don't even really put 40 hours a week in?
By the way, I couldn't agree with you more. So if step number 2 is to understand the farm area, how do you do that? Would you tell me to go out and look at all the real estate in it? Am I looking and I'm sitting at the computer? How do I live and breathe this thing to get knowledgeable?
I'd go back. All of our statistics are on MLS, right? And this is what we have that other people don't. So you go back and you look, how have sales been? Have prices gone up, down? By what percent have they gone up or down? Because when you start going out on appointments or when you're sending out your farm pieces and you can say, great news, year to date, we're already up 6.2%. Last year, the whole year, we were only up 5%. This shows that the market's moving in the right. Okay, who is going to be the expert for the area if you're the one who's giving the kind of detailed statistics that are already available to you in MLS, right? So know the area, know all about the schools, the shopping, the traffic flow, know all about the area. I can do that. In a new farm, if you spend half a day, you will know more than most people who live in that neighborhood about that neighborhood.
Wow, that's a big idea.
Oh no, it's a massive differentiator. So when you sit down at the table with people and they go, I want you to know we're interviewing 3 realtors. And you go, perfect. 2 people are going to have their hearts broken because I'm coming in to take the listing. right? And if you understand more about that neighborhood than they do, and you can go, you guys realize your neighborhood started in 96. This is the cool thing about it. Sales were really slow for the first 4 years, but for the last three, man, we've seen good appreciation. And last year, you guys actually saw this much where, okay, who else is coming to the table to talk to them at that level?
No, nobody.
So you're talking about a $13,500 commission just for getting a very basic level house. $13,500. And the other thing you do is I tell all my agents when I'm training them, listen, if you want to win, spend 2 hours before the listing preparing for the listing. Why? Because most agents don't have much to do and they're killing time anyway, pretending like they're working. If you spend 2 hours, you will have gone through all the pictures. And when I sit down with you, I know, Jason, that as a seller, you're thinking, well, I'd like to know how many houses Andy sold in the neighborhood. And if you haven't sold any, or if you haven't sold very many, then you go, that's not a question I'd like to answer. So what I do instead is I look at all the comps and I know everything about the comps. And I can look back at KW comps and see when open houses were and go, I don't know if you guys saw the one we had. Notice I just said we had. I'm getting credit for that. It was one block over and it was priced at $650. I think we had an open house, I don't know, maybe a month before it sold, and it sold a month ago. So did y'all go through that open house a couple months ago? And they'll go, oh man, that house. Now here's what it had that was impressive. It had a massive game room that overlooked that back. And then it had an area in the front when you first, okay. When I tell them about 2 or 3 houses like this, are they going to wonder, does he have any experience in the neighborhood? They're going to get exactly what I want them to get because everything I'm going to do is purposeful. This is not social work. I'm not there to give them great information to use with the next agent. And in fact, even if they're calling me because they're best friends and agent, but they want another opinion, they are not going to hire their best friend.
So step 1, pick the right area. Step 2, be the expert. And it sounds like you're the expert on not just the neighborhood, but on the complete area. And then step 3, be memorable and consistent. What are the touches that matter most? Tell me exactly how to go run a farm.
Okay. So if nobody's in the farm, you can get away with one piece a month. Let's remember that the whole goal with farming is building a relationship with people. Okay. The best way to build a relationship with anyone is one-on-one. Is for us to be able to talk and right. So where can I get one-on-one with people? I don't want to go knock the doors of 3,000 houses and introduce myself. And so, but what I can do is I can start because no one else is farming the neighborhood because we know it's below 6%. I can start by being the only one giving them a piece and giving them great information.
Because there's a million ways to do things, but there's usually one best way. What's the piece and how do I do it?
Okay, so once a quarter, you're going to send the quarterly piece, can be a postcard or a letter that breaks down sales and what's happened. Okay. Once you're established in the farm, I wish I had one in front of me. So I have an agent who lives in my farm also. And once a quarter, she markets. And what she tries to do is take credit for sales that are my sales. So what I did, and this is a small neighborhood of 350 homes. So what I did recently is she sent out a piece. And I always have people in the neighborhood who send me pictures of other people's pieces that they get. And so I look at the piece and I go, oh man, she's quoting, okay, there have been 4 sales and this is the price per foot and here's the this and that, right? And the average price point's like 1.7, let's say. And so I look at those and I go, 3 out of 4 of those sales are mine. I come to the office, I talk to the staff, I go, here's what I want. I want a piece going out this week that basically says, here you go for the last quarter. And we'd already sent our quarter piece. She tried to cover it. So I sent one, but I broke it down differently. Address, sold, list price, and then over to the side, a big thing that says, buy Andy, buy Andy, buy Andy. So 3 of the 4 were mine, and the other one wasn't by her, it was by someone else. So I listed the other person's name. So I covered up the post because I know we're going on the holidays. I don't want people sitting on her piece going, oh, well, she seems to know everything. So I sent one out that said, I sold this one, I sold this one, I sold this one, and someone no one's ever heard of sold this one.
I love that. So number 1, the quarterly piece, which is going to be all the sales and everything that's happening.
It is solely education, right? Think of it that way.
That knocks out 4 of my 12. What's next?
Okay. So the other ones, if you're doing consistent sales in the neighborhood, like in my farm, every single month is a postcard with a picture of the house that says sold, list price this. It might say sold in 5 days or something. And then the other half, remember, postcard like this So this half is a picture of the house, so they'll recognize it because it's going to their neighbors. And then on this side is a testimonial with the people's name at the bottom. Why is that critical? Because people know their neighbors. They know them from, oh, our kids are on the same soccer team. We're in the bunco club with them. We play golf at the country club together. So what happens is over time, I'll show up to listing appointments. And because they've gotten postcards every month from me with a testimonial, Indian's team are amazing. We've sold 10 houses, never experienced anything like this. Bob and Sue Smith. So I'll show up at somebody's house and they'll go, well, you sold Bob and Sue's, you sold Jim and Mary's, you sold this one, you sold this, and they remember all of that. I may not even remember the individual people, but they remember, right? It's very connected within the neighborhood.
Does that round out my one piece a month, or are there flyers and other things that go with it?
So that's the one piece a month if you're doing a sale a month. But the other thing that I always used to do in the farm, and if it's a less expensive farm, I believe humor is huge. And so if I'm starting out a farm, it's not unusual that I have a snapshot of my head. And then it might be for St. Patrick's Day, it's going to be on a leprechaun. For Valentine's Day, it's my head popping out of a heart. I need to be memorable. And realtors send out a lot of the same junk over and over and over again. So I'm big on, look, if you didn't have any sales, there is a holiday every single month, right? There is some kind of holiday. It's Arbor Day. Right. And there's Andy's head climbing a tree, and it can be a stick figure climbing a tree with my real head at the top. Right. It doesn't matter. Something that's memorable that they go, oh, it's that Andy. Oh, but when they go to sell their house, I want to talk to that Andy.
It's so interesting to me because, Gary Keller always says that the best things are the most simple, yet everything naturally becomes more complicated. When I listen to you, it's kind of a masterclass in simplicity. It's, I'm going to do things that the other agents don't. I'm going to make people laugh and be memorable. And then any chance I get to hold an open house in my farm area, I'm going to exploit it and meet everyone there.
Exactly. For the sole purpose on the open houses, even in my farm, I don't want any of the buyers. I always bring one of my agents with me because I don't want a buyer. I want to meet neighbors. I am building my farm business for years to come. So every time I take a new listing, I find there are neighbors who will come in. I will have neighbors come into my farm, average price around 1.7, and go, Andy, we live 2 doors down and we're not ready to sell yet, but in a year or so, we're going to sell. We just wanted to come meet you so that when it's time, you'd know us and you'd be willing to sell our house.
It's so good, man. Walk me through the math on this. Help me think about it, because when I talk to agents, and this is a show for the biggest and most talented real estate agents on the planet, the mega agents are our audience. And even within that group, I'll hear, I did that for a year, didn't have success. Or I did that for 2 years and we moved on.
I haven't even told you for the high-end stuff. First of all, if you're dealing with mega agents, you guys got to move up your price point. As a guy who, for my years, started at the lowest price point and worked all the way to the top, you got to move up your price point. Okay. Once you've moved up your price point, then the most important thing that I rarely talk to people about, and I need to say up front, you guys are going to judge me for this, but I didn't start with this as the intention. I discovered it once I started. And that is, you need to show your listings. You need to show your listings.
What does that mean?
In other words, you need to show up and not open the door for them and go, the master's in the back and it's lovely and there's a pool around the corner and I'll be over here in the corner if you need me. No, everybody who goes through my houses gets a tour by me. Why? First reason, and this is the reason I started, because you got 15 to 20,000 agents in Austin, and there are a lot of people who are just selling expensive houses because they stumbled across the parents of a friend of theirs, and so they don't know anything about the houses. They don't know anything about the area. They don't know the schools. They don't know traffic. They don't know restaurants. They don't know any of it, but I do. And so when I'm there to show my houses, I greet them at the door. And when I was a kid in college, I was a bouncer. So I'm used to working the door. When I come to the door, I open the door and block it, right? So look, it kind of looks like this. The door's closed. I open the door this far and I put myself through the door. And I go, hi, I'm Andy. Nice to meet you. And I make an introduction with everybody, including the agent. And then I go, y'all come on in. I'm going to give you like the 5-minute tour. And then I'm going to turn you loose and you spend as long as you like. Now, the houses I sell, the 5-minute tour can't be done in less than 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, I look at that 20 minutes now because I got to where about 6 years in, I went back and went, man, something crazy's happening. All these people that I've showed houses to who were not my clients and didn't even buy my listing, when they go to sell, they're hiring me. And so I realized that's my first interview. So my 20 minutes with them, I totally look at it now like these are my future clients. Okay. And so I'm going through the house and I'm building rapport with them and I'm going, feature benefit. Beautiful. If you like molding, this is a beautiful house and the views out the back are incredible. Okay. When you come in and I just start going, right. And then I'm talking to them as we go through, where are you guys from? Oh, you're going to love it. I've lived in this area for 26 years. I can tell you the schools are amazing, right? I'm the expert. What I know is whether they buy my listing or someone else's, if during that 20 minutes, I impress them that, wow, he's actually selling the house, not just listing it, and he knows everything about this area, we're going to use him.
I get it. I totally get it. You're interviewing for a listing that may or may not happen 10 years from now.
100%. 100% I am. Okay, and get this one. I think it's brilliant. And I know you're going to go, no, Andy, it's kind of wrong. But this is what I do. Once a year, I have a Christmas party at my house. It's coming up now. Everybody in my farm, again, 2,600 homes, everybody in my farm who has bought one of my listings is invited to my Christmas party. So if I sold 30 houses in my farm, those 30 people are all invited to my house. There will be 150 people. It's catered, piano player, valet parking, Santa walking around. It's like a Hallmark event. Those people become my friends.
I love that.
So, prime example. This is a brilliant example that's happening at this moment. So a guy bought a house down the street from me, a smaller house in 21. Okay. And his agent was like, yo, Andy, we've been great friends for a long time. And I'm like, that's awesome. Right. But I do what I do. I send my postcards. I invite them to the party. So he comes to the party and here it is in 24. And about 6 months ago, after having been to a couple of my Christmas parties and came over for a barbecue thing I had for the street, he calls and goes, hey, Andy, I think I want to sell the house and move central because of this. Janine and I had been to his house for wine. His house is 2.6. And what he buys in Central Austin, he goes, I'm just going to replace it with around that. It might cost me a little more. So I look and go, okay, so that is at a minimum $5.5 million in business that the agent had told me specifically, oh, great friend, we're great friends. This is about building relationships.
How does the math play out in a farm? Talk me through, because someone out there is thinking, I'm all in. I love the way Andy thinks. I can do this. What I don't know is how many pieces get me a phone call, how many years I got to commit to it. Is it going to be a hockey stick?
I think that anybody, like any business, I think you figure that when I start, it's going to be slow and it's going to take me a while to get established. How quickly you get established will depend upon how much work you put into it. If you do the minimum, go, I'm going to send a postcard a month, you're going to get some business. Year one, you will have business. If you send the flyers to the less expensive, year one, you will have business. You will likely be able to pay for the farm in a year. If you do it right and you do the open houses, if you do an event, if you start inviting people, if your goal is to get in front of people, if you're understanding, all I want to do is build relationship. If you're doing the pieces that truly are the testimonials every time from people they know, it will ramp much faster.
I'm jumping in. You see, this year, and I told you when we started the episode that Andy spent $34,000 and generated over $1.1 million in GCI. So how is that possible? Well, when you really get to know Andy and you hang out with him long enough, what you'll hear him say repeatedly is raise your average sales price. You see, when you get into the math of farming, here's what I know. The response, as long as you're in a neighborhood that turns over regularly, is going to be the same, whether they're $200,000, $300,000, or $2 or $3 million houses. Andy would say, you're crazy if you're not farming $1 million plus neighborhoods, because in his mind, it's just as easy to generate the lead and it costs the same amount of money. That's the secret to Andy's business. It isn't about the number of transactions that he does. It's about the saturation point in the farm and the price of the homes that he sells. Let me ask you a final question on this, on these postcards and on the flyers. What's the call to action? Is there a mofer? Do I write call today? How do I make the phone ring?
It depends on the price point. If you've moved up your price point to a high end, high pressure sales aren't going to get you anything. You're not going to get anything by going, hurry, call today, and all of, the flashy websites with things blinking and stuff. That's not for those people. First of all, higher end people, they know more about the economy than most. For work and for their own finances and investments, they pay close attention. So what they want is data. They want you, when you show up at their house and when you send them a postcard, they want you to be them in their industry. That's what they want. They want to know you're at that level. At the lower end, it's different. Again, get their attention and then tell them, interest rates have just dropped. The Fed did this, they did this, they did this. This could be happening next year. This is a great, if you've ever thought of moving, this is your call to action. And you do it in a way, and then you have your funny stuff down here where they look at the funny stuff and then maybe they read the message. And that's how you get them to move forward.
Genius, man. It's easy and it makes sense to me. I want to step sideways because you've had tremendous success. And not just in business, but in life also. And you decided to write a book. Tell me about the book. It's called The 80% Project. What was the genesis?
So, man, I have led this amazing life, right? So again, and for those of you, listen, anybody who is struggling in real estate, you guys have to understand something. This is the most unbelievable, the greatest industry in the world. So for me, I look and go, man, as I turned 60, often I tell Janine when we're lying in bed, can you even believe this is the life that we've led? We're in this kind of house, electric gates open when I come home. And every year we have as vacations that we want to take. And I think, who gets to live that life? Movie stars, great sports heroes. I didn't know it was possible for like a normal guy like me to have this life. So what you guys have to understand is this is the greatest industry in the world. Look up, there's no ceiling. When you want a raise, when you want a promotion, you ask yourself, look in the mirror and go, hey, this year I made 200,000. Next year I really want to make 400,000. Then go make 400,000. And if you made $1 million this year and you want 2 million, all of that is attainable. That's why we are unbelievably blessed to be in this industry. When I started, Gary told us it's God, family, work. I have a crazy story about that where I learned so much from Gary early on. I am a believer in life first. I told you, I'm not motivated by money. The motivation for me is to be happy. I want to have a great life. And my kids, the life they've gotten to live and how they're doing in life right now, it's unbelievable. So I decide, okay, I'm going to start doing some different kind of work with people. I'm going to start pulling people up. I'm going to pull agents up to do better, but I'm going to reach out to people. Because what I've had is an opportunity to sit in the middle of very wealthy people's household for months at a time when I'm selling houses. And what I noticed was so many of the breadwinners are over motivated by money. They're goal oriented, but they're not goal oriented with any other aspect of their life than work. And so the relationship with the kids is contentious. The wife and husband, you can see when they're together, they don't like each other. And I'm shocked by this. These are wealthy, successful people. And so all of a sudden I step back and I go, wow, if you make a tiny bit of effort in multiple areas of your life, I live my life with a life pie, okay? So think of a pie with 5 pieces. So for me, the pieces are work, because you got to make money. Family, because family is everything. For me, then spirituality, then a personal slice, and then investing, money, finance, okay? Those are my 5 pieces. So if I look at my 5 pieces, I go, okay, family. Here's an example of the family piece. 8 years ago, I told you this story. My mom got Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed. So I made a decision, and in my life, my family piece of the life pie, I wrote in goals for the year like I do every year for each of the 5 pieces. I write in goals, not just for business. So I wrote in, I'm going to be more intentional about my parents as they get older. And I decided I'm going to drive from Austin to San Antonio once a week, and I'm going to call them every day. That was 8 years ago. And for 8 years, every Thursday morning I get up and I leave my house at 6:30 and I drive to San Antonio and I'm there by 8. Now my mom's passed a couple of years ago. I meet my dad at Jim's, a restaurant. We have breakfast. I drive down the street. I see mom at the cemetery. I go to mom and dad's house. I hang out for an hour and a half. Dad and I go to lunch. I leave there. I drive back and I'm back by 3. Every Thursday for 8 years. And my question to those of you listening is, how many employers do you think would tolerate that behavior? that I go, hey, my folks are getting older and I'm just going to go to San Antonio every week on Thursday. No, this is the life that I get to live. Okay. And that's the family slice, the personal slice of my life pie. 2 years ago at 58, I hadn't competed in bodybuilding in 32 years, but it was always in my mind. I quit because when we had Cam, my son, like everything focused was like, no, I need to put that on the shelf. So I wait. And it's always in the back of my mind. You always wanted to get on stage. You need to get back on stage. You got to get on stage again. At 58 years old, I create my life pie. And in the personal piece, I went, compete in a show. I'm going to do it. This is my year. So 2 years ago, I go and I compete in a bodybuilding show, right? I go to Arizona. Why? Because it was important to me. And again, the lesson here is you don't just set goals for business. You set goals to improve your life.
That's so good, man. So why do you think, because the premise of the book here is it's simple, but it's not easy. Because the premise of the book is I have this wheel. I have these 5 sections of my life, work, family, investing. I have these. Why do you think people don't wake up and set a goal for each of them? And those that do, why do you think they abandon the goal so quickly?
So I think most people don't set the goal because they know they can. Yeah, I know. I need to be nicer. I need to do that. I know. I get it. I want to climb a mountain one day. I'll get to it at some point. And then you're old and you've never done it. It's the same as business. If you have a business coach, when I was coached by Gary, I hated, dreaded the monthly meeting at his office. It was years ago, and he was so on the numbers, and I would be stressed the day before and tell my staff, my God, get me the numbers. I got to go see Gary. And they knew, don't have Andy in the office the day before. We'll just get the numbers together, right? Because he was holding me accountable to the numbers. We don't hold ourselves accountable to the other things. We do in most cases if we're successful for business. But the thing that we lose sight of is this is not about money. And it's not about business, it's about having an amazing life. And so those other things are the ones that are really critical. And it takes so little effort to make such a massive difference.
It's so good, dude. Where can they get the book?
It's called The 80% Project. And by the time this is out, it will be on the shelves. You can get it through Amazon and wherever. And I'm telling you, I never thought I would write a book. That's the truth. I had many people pressure me and go, you need to do it. But now that I've done it, oh man, I'm telling you, you guys need to get the book. Not because it's going to make me like $1.30 a book or whatever it is, but because it is life-changing to live your life the right way, to live your life with intention. It is unfair not to live this way. I'm telling you, as a guy who's been in the houses of so many wealthy people who from the outside you go, man, they have it all. When they say money doesn't buy happiness, that's not just a saying. I will tell you that because I have seen it over and over and over again. And I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush to say all wealthy people. No, that's not the case. But I'm telling you, I see it with great consistency. And if you make such a small effort, oh my gosh, it's life-changing, the results.
Here's my prediction. 2 or 3 years from now, you're going to say, I heard Andy for the first time on the MREA podcast. You know where you're going to hear him? You're going to hear him at the biggest stages on the planet because the message is that good. Andy, thank you for being such a great friend of the industry, and thanks for teaching us today.
Absolutely. I love this industry. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Do not start sending me emails and text messages. I hear you. You're thinking, Jason, why didn't you take him to the garden? What happened to Athens and Epicurus? Friends, he didn't need to go to the garden. You know why? He's sitting in it 24/7. That's why he wrote the book, The 80% Project. He didn't wake up and say, I want to write a book and have a business model and see how much money I can make doing it. He looked up and said, I have more than I ever thought I was going to have because I found the greatest industry in the world. And now I simply want to give back. This dude lives in the garden. And I think personally, he walks around in bewilderment and amazement at how fortunate he is, how lucky he is, and how much he loves real estate and real estate agents. And when you think about his model, it makes perfect sense to me why he's had the success. You see, Andy isn't running the most complicated real estate model. He's running a simple farming model. Number one, find an area that does not allow any one real estate agent to have any more than 6% of the market share. Number two, once I find this area so no one has a head start sending them flyers and postcards. That's it. And when you think about step 2, he's only doing it for 2 reasons. Number 1, to prove that he's the expert. There is nothing about this neighborhood that he doesn't know. And number 2, to make himself more likable. And Andy is using comedy for that. I can just imagine his head on a little leprechaun's body because the guy is a giant, and that makes people smile. And then finally, be present. Whether it's an open house or hosting events, Andy is present in his farms. And over time, this builds his network. Here's the truth about Andy Allen. Number 1, he's got a heart of gold, and all he wants to do is give back. Number 2, he's running an incredibly simple model. Number 3, he treats everyone in his database like family, and everyone in his database is in his farm areas, and that is the key. Go forth and do likewise. There it is. That wraps another episode. Friends, I don't know what you're taking out of this. I really don't. I'll tell you what I want you to be taking out of it, which is these are the people that are having tremendously big lives. And the reason it's happening is because they're setting up the models and systems to do just that. Gary Keller told me that leadership is teaching people how to think so that they do the things they need to do when they need to do them, so that ultimately they get the things they want when they want to have them. And that's what I want for you. You're all leaders, but it begins with leading ourselves. If you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to click the subscribe button anywhere that you get your podcasts. We want to be the voice in your head every single week, and every week we're dropping new content. We also send out a newsletter at the conclusion of every show to make sure that you get the highest points in the models and systems that were discussed. So if you want to sign up, I need your name and your email address. Head over to the millionaireagentpodcast.com. millionaireagentpodcast.com. Enter your name and your email address, and every week that newsletter will be in your box. Friends, you just went on a journey. I hope that what happens between now and the next time we meet is absolutely wonderful for you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information. Warning: you must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including for B2B calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an autodialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure your compliance.